If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That is a phrase that MG has clearly never heard of, because this is the all-new HS and it shares nothing with its top-selling predecessor. So have they made a new icon or have they ruined it? And now it isn't just going after the Nissan Qashqai and the Volkswagen Tiguan, it's also going after the Audi Q5. So has MG reinvented the HS and made it a premium SUV, or should it have just stayed in its lane? We're going to test what this all-new HS is like to drive, what its upgraded interior is like, and how practical it is, to decide whether it can really go after posh alternatives. Now, even with all those changes, one thing remains the same, and that is the pricing, or at least the fact that it still really shakes up the segment. It starts at under 25 grand, which is almost half the price of a base Audi Q5. And it doesn't look half the price, does it? I mean, firstly, it's longer and wider and a little bit shorter than the old HS, so it's about the same size as an Audi Q5 now. Plus, you get plenty of technical features. Take, for example, these LED headlights, and you also get this big front grille. It's really dominating like a big mouth now. It looks pretty sharp and angular, and actually on the side as well, on this trophy model, which is 2.5 grand more expensive, well, you get these nice 19-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Bridgestone tyres. And then if you look at the doors, both the front and the rear doors are really long, which bodes very well for cabin space. And at the back, you get this very Audi-like lights bar, and you even get a bit of fake carbon fibre down here. And further evidence that this brand is going after Audi comes with the colour palette for the HS, because you've got a lot of greys, a white, and a red and a black. And this colour, this grey, is called Hampstead Grey. And just to give you a bit of context, if you don't know about Hampstead, the average price of a property there, and that includes flats, is £1.3 million. Whew. But anyway, as Audi buyers will know, what matters most about premium feeling is what's inside. Now, the first thing you notice when you get inside is how much lower this seating position can go, and it makes the car feel much sportier, as does the use of this steering wheel over here, which is pinched from the MG4 and the MG3, and that's no bad thing because I like it. I think it looks really good and it's nice to steer with as well. Plus, you also get MG's latest technological upgrade. So this interior is all new, and that means you've got these two screens up ahead here. One is your instrument cluster and one is your infotainment screen, but both of them are high resolution. You can get your maps displayed up here if you want, so it's good for sat nav, and you also get a nice simple to use system. It's fast, it's smartphone like in reactions, and it's just easy to navigate the menus. The biggest negative really in 2024 is the fact that Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are not wireless, they are wired, but they are as standard, so that's at least good. Plus, you also have to use the climate control settings all in here. It's a bit annoying, but actually, as far as digital systems go, this is about as good as they get. And there are handy shortcuts for some more important buttons. Elsewhere, you've got a lot of storage room. We've got two cup holders here. We've got a place to put your phone, which is a wireless charging mat as well. And you also get two USB ports down there. Plus, you even got a little bit of storage in here. It's not massive, but it's usable. And shout out to the glove box as well, because this is a genuinely spacious glove box in 2024. As are the door bins actually as well, very usable down there. And yeah, all right, I admit that it isn't going to have the fit and finish or the feel of an Audi up front here. The materials are slightly different. They are well put together and everything is solid, but this car does have something that trumps even an Audi, because it's something nicked from a Porsche, and that is the manual gear knob here. It definitely looks like they've taken heavy inspiration from those cars from Porsche, but one thing that leaves manual Porsches far behind is back there. There is acres of space back here. I mean, my legs are basically or very close to straight, and that's despite this seat being set how I like it. And I've even got loads and loads of headroom as well. Plus, this is a generously sized 5-seater. The middle seat doesn't look much narrower than the ones either side of it. And of course, if you don't have someone in the middle, you've got this nice wide armrest here with a couple of cup holders. You don't have a ski hatch, that's one minor grievance, but good space for the passengers, and even the ISOFIX bars are in very easy reach. And if you need to plug in your phones, well, you've got two USB ports down there. You've got a couple of vents as well, although I have to admit, I would like my own controls because I like things much cooler than people often are in the front. But minor grievance, at least you've got good storage space in the doors down here. In fact, these are quite wide. You'll get your keep cups in there, no problems whatsoever. And you might be thinking, hang on a minute, this is the petrol car. The plug-in hybrid one is going to have a much smaller amount of legroom because the battery is in the floor. But you are wrong, because the floor space is identical in both models, and it's also the same when you look in the boot. Because it doesn't matter what model you go for, whether you go for the petrol one like this car, or the plug-in hybrid, or even the normal hybrid that's coming out next year, the boot space will be identical. So that means you get a good width and you even get a good depth as well. Although it's disappointing to see that there isn't much in the way of underfloor storage. But in terms of overall usability, especially with the electric tailgate, this is a generously sized boot. So all that's left to find out now is how this thing drives. Before I start talking to you about how this car drives, it's worth mentioning the price of the thing again, because at under £25,000, you might think it's not going to drive very nicely, or certainly that's where they've made the cost savings. But before I actually give you those details, I want to let you know in a little secret, and that is that you can actually get an Audi Q5 for under £20,000 on Cinch if you search on our website or you download our app. And of course, you can find loads of other cool cars on there for great value as well. All right, now this HS, does it feel like they've cut the corner when it comes to driving? Well, with an all-new engine, and I mean properly all-new, this 1.5 turbo is totally different to the old one. It feels quite refined. It's got a nice, strong turbocharged pull. There is a noticeable kick when you get it over 2,000 revs, but it just seems to haul the car forwards nice and smoothly. And we are currently driving the manual 6-speed car, and of course a lot of people are going to be going for the 7-speed automatic. But just like the previous generation, this manual car is actually a decent one to drive. The gearbox is nice, and actually the way it looks like a Porsche gearbox, but it feels more like a BMW one when you sort of move it through the gate, although it does require a bit more effort. But actually you realize you don't actually need to work it that hard, because this engine is very forgiving. If you are driving uphill and you're a gear too high, or indeed if you just want to pull away in second gear, this motor will do it. It's actually quite a nice tractable 1.5 turbo. Don't get me wrong, it's not quick, requiring almost 10 seconds to hit 62 miles per hour. But this petrol HS has no trouble getting you up to motorway speeds. Plus, it rides well, even on the bigger wheels of this trophy, soaking up drain covers and speed humps, and only getting a bit fidgety on the roughest of surfaces. How about the handling though? Have they cut corners on the corners? Well, no, they haven't. What they've done is actually they've just said we want this car to be more comfortable than sporty, and so yeah, I have to admit it is quite roly-poly, and you can definitely feel that this car, when it's loaded up with weight and if you carry speed around the bends, it's going to lean a fair bit. But it feels like there's a lot of grip on these Bridgestone tyres, and actually the steering as well is nicely weighted. I have to say they've just seemed to have got it all nicely matched up. So the pedal weighting, the brake pedal response, and even the steering response all feel nice and cohesive. So much so that you don't really think about them unless you do what I'm doing, which is trying to think about them. Of course, if you want to let the car take some of the effort out of it, well, you can use cruise control, and we also do get all the things that you get on modern day cars, including the bongs and the bings. So if I went up to and over the speed limit, it'd be beeping away at me right now, and if I were to put my wheel over a white line, just like I did there, you can hear it beeping. But thankfully you can turn it off relatively quickly. It's not the easiest one. You can just press one button down here and then the off button on the screen. What is beeping at me? Oh, it's telling me to get a It's been beeping at me the whole time, and there's a little coffee symbol on the dash, and it's because I keep looking at the camera, so the sensor here is going, he's closing his eyes or he's looking away a lot. Get a coffee. Don't need any more coffee, car. I'll blow up. One area where the technology is actually very, very helpful is with the reversing camera. Now, I can actually show you, even before I put it into reverse, that you get a lot of technology in this department, despite this car being such great value. So you've got a very wide view for the reversing camera, and then you've also got a 360 above view, and you can move the camera around the car as well. So you get to see all angles, which will be helpful, not just in parking, but also if you're driving through town and you want to spot if there's any unseen obstacles in the way. But if I were to exit this and then just put the car into reverse, then of course it automatically gives me my reversing view. Now you can see that it's not the most high resolution camera, but it's pretty useful, and actually the 360 view is very, very useful indeed. And actually now I can demonstrate to you the fact that it has a feature that we first saw on Land Rovers. Bearing in mind some of those cars are 70, 80, 90 grand. This car can actually show the underneath entirely clearly as well. So if you're driving over a drain pipe, or if you want to make sure you don't hit some kind of obstacle that you would have to go over, well, this thing can help you. And actually it does have another feature I wasn't expecting, which is a hill descent control as well. So I don't know, maybe some MG customers do drive these off-road?
Although let's be frank, far more of them are going to use their MG to commute or for work. And for those people, there is a plug-in hybrid HS, which adds batteries and electric muscle to give you 300 horsepower for a 31.5 grand price. For context, that's more power, but for 7 grand less than a Kia Sportage plug-in. So, has MG cut corners when it comes to electric range?
Absolutely not, and it's because it has 75 miles of claimed electric range. That means it's way up to the top of the class. Actually, it beats even the Audi Q5 plug-in hybrid. Well, it's almost double that car's range. And another massive advantage, and one that's very relevant, especially for company car buyers, is how low the CO2 output is of this car. Now, on paper, it does 12 grams of CO2 per kilometre. So that means it's down at 5% business in kind tax. So effectively, this is going to be exceptionally cheap to have as a company car. So much so, in fact, that MG reckons that EV buyers or EV company car drivers might even be tempted to switch from their EVs back to a plug-in hybrid because of the added convenience, because of course this does use petrol as well. So when you factor that in with the fact that this is actually a very practical car and of course it's an easy one to drive, well, it does really feel like this could be the perfect work-life car.
Alright, I have to admit this heavier plug-in hybrid model does ride a tiny bit firmer than the purely petrol HS, but having its automatic gearbox to do the work for you means this is an easier thing to drive. Although, that doesn't mean it can't shift too.
300 horsepower is not a number to be laughed at all. But this is a much smoother accelerating car than some of the, slap you on the backside accelerating alternatives out there. So it's not exciting, but it's definitely effortless. And it shows that on the paperwork, because this will hit 62 in under 7 seconds. You've also got one pedal driving as well, so if you turn it up through the modes, you've got 3 settings. If you turn it to the maximum, if I come off the power, I can feel the car slowing down, and that's really helpful. It will make city driving much easier, and even when you're coming up to roundabouts and junctions, it takes effort out of you and reduces brake wear as well. If there is one big issue with this car, it's that the charging speed is far from the fastest out there. In fact, it charges at half the kilowatts that some of the other cars do, but because it has such a big electric range, 75 miles is easily enough for most people's commutes, both there and back. Well, in theory, you're not going to have to charge this out in public very often. Mostly, you're going to do an overnight charge at home. So earlier we asked, should MG have stayed in its lane when it comes to this new HS? And well, I don't think they should have at all, because this car improves itself in every single measurable way. I like the design of the old one, but I get why they've gone in this direction. And of course, if you compare it to a Q5, yes, I know an Audi is going to be nicer to live with, more powerful as well when it feels on the road, and also probably a nicer interior. But when you take into account the money, the massive difference, well, this thing represents exceptional value. It is a very worthy entrant into the premium SUV world, albeit at the tail end of it. But if you want further evidence of MG's ambitions, well, they've got a model that goes even further in that department, and you'll have to click this video up here to learn more.